Good morning. This is Gary Stotko with Custom Business Solutions, along with my co-host, Jeremy Julian.
Good morning.
And our very special guest, Anthony Mejia. Anthony's the IT director at Lazy Dog Restaurants. And welcome, Anthony.
Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Outstanding.
Perfect.
Thank you for joining us. You know, Anthony, take a minute and tell us a little bit about the history of Lazy Dog and your role at the company.
No problem. Well, Lazy Dog has 12 locations today. We actually started 10 years ago next week, so we're coming up on our big 10-year anniversary. Our restaurants are located all throughout Southern California. We just opened up in San Diego, so we're now from Thousand Oaks all the way down to San Diego. We're looking to move to the Northern California area later this year, so we're excited about that expansion. And we're owned by the Sims family. And the Sims family has been restaurateurs for over 25 years in the industry. They were the founders of Mimi's Restaurant, and after they sold that, they were looking to start up something new, and they shifted over to Lazy Dog. And at the time, it was called Lazy Dog Cafe, and recently we changed our name to Lazy Dog Restaurants and Bar.
Excellent. It's a great brand, great product. I'm a fan and a customer of your restaurant.
Okay.
So, and tell us a little bit about yourself, Anthony.
No problem. Well, you know, as you mentioned, I am the director of IT for Lazy Dog. I've been there for about 2.5 years now. Previous to that, I had spent a 7-year stay at BJ's Restaurants, and as you probably know, before that I was at CBS, working alongside you and Jeremy many, many moons ago. So I was able to take BJ's from 25 to 100 locations, and I look forward to steering the technology vision for Lazy Dog and hope to be here for when we hit number 100 as well.
Outstanding. Yeah, a family member is in the house. So Recipe Viewer at a high level brings interactive online recipes right to your kitchens with easy-to-use touchscreen terminals. We're going to jump into where Recipe Viewer works best. If you're multi-unit or planning multi-locations, if you're a growing business looking for continuity and consistency, and then if you have a complex menu or a deep, deep menu with many items, this is really a great product with feature sets that deals exactly with all three of those items really well. Jeremy, I'm going to have you take us through the key benefits. The first one being save money.
So one of the things that we sought out to do when we created the product is get rid of the hassle of having to send out paper recipes or even electronic recipes via email, via a portal that then has to get printed within the restaurant, requires somebody within the restaurant to have to print things out, laminate them, put them into the kitchen area, hang them up. I could tell you tons of stories of different places that have got recipes that are in different formats in the kitchen, whether they be laminated, hanging above the cooks. They're in a book that has to get moved around, and so we were shooting to save money by eliminating that and making it all digital, coming to you streaming in a real-time fashion, straight from your corporate office behind your firewall, and so we'll talk a little bit more about some of those pieces in a little bit.
Nice, nice. And now tell us about saving time.
So again, saving time is a huge thing for all restaurateurs. You guys know that labor cost is one of your largest costs within the restaurant. And so how do I get the information into the hands of the people that need it at the time that they need the information? And so you've got your prep cooks and your line cooks that are going to have the information that they need without having to go find the book. You're going to get consistency out of the recipe because they are going to look it up rather than trying to memorize it. If it took them time to go walk back to the kitchen, and I can tell you a quick story when we first rolled it out to one of our chains where they were consistently making an item wrong, and they would get into arguments from the expo side and the line side where it was consistently wrong, and the time savings was, you know what, previously they used to get into this argument, they'd go back to the back, they'd go find the recipe book, they'd pull out the recipe and show it to them, hopefully fixing it if you had a good expo. Well, you know what? As soon as you put the recipe digitally right into their workspace, it's going to save that argument, it's going to save that time, and you're going to get some consistency out of the product.
Excellent, outstanding. One of the items that falls in between saving money and saving time is security. We'll touch on that a bit with Anthony later in the presentation, but Recipe Viewer allows upper management the peace of mind of having proprietary information secured behind a company firewall, which is huge in my opinion.
Yeah, let me just point one additional point. We have another customer that uses the product that used to have 2 or 3 copies of recipe books around, but it was a very complex menu, a couple hundred menu items, 2-inch thick, 3-inch thick binder. Well, that 2-inch thick binder, they used to have to check it out to the cooks at the beginning of the shift, and then it would go back into the safe every night.
Wow.
And they had a full process around checking the book out and putting it back in. Just that alone, this customer said, you know what, it makes no sense. We're just going to put it behind the firewall and nobody has to know it. The only way you're going to get the recipes is potentially by taking photographs of every single recipe on the screen. It's just so time consuming. So that recipe book that used to be able to get up and walk out the door somehow, some way, no longer is an issue when you go to a recipe viewer type product.
No, outstanding. You peel back the onion, the layers of the onion with this product, and continue to find more and more that truly are benefits to the restaurateur. And the last one, a key benefit, is being agile.
So again, kind of talks about some of the points that we've been talking about with the product, but the agility to be able to change your menu on the fly, whether it be something, and here's another little quick anecdote from a customer. There was an issue with spinach a couple of years ago, and we had a customer that needed to change all of their recipes and alert every single restaurant right away that the spinach, that they had gotten some contaminated spinach. They were able to, on the fly, change that recipe and get it off the screens and tell them that they're not allowed to produce it instantly to their chain of 100 restaurants at the time. And just that alone and that agility probably saved them tons of time emailing, phone calling, all of these different things. So that's just one side of the agility. The second side of it is you want to go try new menu items. You can try a new menu item by putting it up on your recipe viewer. It gets distributed via either video, text, pictures, all of those different media formats down to the restaurants, real time. As soon as the chef produces it, puts the recipe up there, you can put it out there to test for a shift if you want to. It doesn't have to be there for a day, a week, a month. If you were doing that on the old format, you'd have to print the recipe, bring it to the restaurant, or email it to the restaurant, get them to print it out, then they got to produce it. You know what, that agility creates the ability to, as you grow and as you scale, you're going to be able to do the things that you need to do and remain agile, just like you were when you were 1 or 2 restaurants, and you get to a scale of 10, 15, 20, it just gets compounded. It compounds the difficulty level without having a system like this.
No doubt. Thank you. You know what? It brings to mind reducing anxiety also at every level, from your line cooks all the way up to the top executive in the organization. It's huge. So, Anthony, if you could take us through, I know you're familiar with the software from past experience. If you could take us through what your goal was in introducing Recipe Viewer to Lazy Dog.
Okay. Normally when I come to decide whether a product's going to make it into our business, it's either a qualitative or a quantitative or both. And we put quality ahead of cost on this one. This was one where there's definitely an ROI, but the main drive behind putting this product was to get a consistent experience for all of our cooks, all of our expos, all of our bartenders, so that they're all using the proper plates, the proper garnishes, the small details, so that when the item hits the table, whether you're at Lazy Dog San Diego or Lazy Dog Thousand Oaks, you're getting that same dish the same every time, the way you like it.
Excellent. Outstanding. And Jeremy, I know that you participated in the early stages. If you could go over when engaging Anthony and actually deploying this product, some of the things that you had in mind or we had in mind to partner up with them and helping them to accomplish.
Yeah, as we talked about some of the key benefits, I guess I wanted to ask Anthony, really, because he's our guest. What are the things, your guys' goal was to create this consistent guest experience and a consistent cook and bartender experience, but what other anecdotes or what other things have you guys found that have benefited you that weren't even on the radar when you guys went to go deploy the solution?
Yeah, I think to your security point is a great place to start. We had paper books just like a lot of the folks on the phone today, and we were worried about losing recipes, people obtaining them for their personal use or what have you, and putting the system in. One of the great features I've really enjoyed of it is the timeout feature, where after X number of minutes, it automatically logs off the recipe viewer. So if we walk out the door at midnight and a cleaning crew comes in, as an example, they wouldn't be able to look up our recipes. So it adds that extra layer of security that when we're not on site, the system is still secure. And it's such an agile product. We're using that, and I know we'll talk more to this in a little bit, but we're using this in so many different vehicles in our restaurant, and we're integrating it with so many different systems, whether that be the POS or the digital kitchen. So it's the flexibility and the ease of integration have really played a role for us.
Yeah, real quick, just on that agility point, I know something that just in our preparations for this webinar we had talked about is the ability to highlight items. Can you give me some examples of what that's done for you guys as you guys are rolling out new menu items to share with the cooks what's going on?
Yep. As I mentioned as we started that we're rolling out a 10-year anniversary right now, and with that we have some brand new items. Well, we were able to make those items in recipe viewers, but not publish them for consumption until the product was ready to roll out. So we flipped a switch on the day, a couple days before the rollout of those products, and those items were highlighted with a special color on Recipe Viewer. So we knew, okay, these are brand new items. We need to look these up. We need to check out the pictures. We need to make sure we have all our products in, and it made it really easy. And as we're growing, we're at 12 today, but we're going to scale quite significantly from here. I think one of the challenges is communication, and this eliminates one of those communication challenges that we had before, making sure everybody had the menu books and making sure they had the latest recipes. Now we do it once. Everyone has a funnel to go through to get that information, and we're sure that the communication is consistent.
Excellent. Yeah, to add to that or to reiterate what Anthony brings up, any growing chain faces the 3 C's, and that is continuity, consistency, and communication. And so having a tool to facilitate that under any circumstances is a benefit.
Real quick, before we go on to the next slide, Gary, we failed to mention at the beginning, we do have a question panel over on the right. Anthony and Gary and I are going to have some time at the end for questions. So if you guys have any questions, please, you're going to ask those now, and if they are pertinent to what we're talking about real time, we'll bring those in. And if they're not, then we'll wait towards the end and bring up whatever those questions may be. So we would appreciate those questions. I'm sure you guys have got some questions, whether it be for Anthony and how he's rolled it out, or CBS and how we created the product or what it was created for. So
nice. So go ahead, Jay.
Sorry. Anthony alluded to it earlier, and I just wanted to ask him and kind of dialogue. You've got it rolled out, and you alluded to it, that you've got it rolled out in some different areas within the restaurant. Can you talk a little bit about how you guys use it in your prep area?
Sure. We have multiple touch screens in each of our restaurants' prep areas, and this allows us to put the focus of what each guy is working on. So, for instance, we have a cold station. So when he logs in, it goes directly to the cold prep items, and at the hot station, so on. And then the manager has certain items. The kitchen manager has certain items that he preps. So you can kind of compartmentalize the recipe viewer in the prep area, and that's made that's reduced the amount of time that each of these guys have to talk to each other, so they can spend more time focusing on their job.
Awesome. Nice. Where's some other areas? I think on the line. You put it into the line. Talk about how that works, even integrated with your guys' digital kitchen system, and what that all does for you.
I think it's important to note in this picture that this is a bump pad. And one of the things you hadn't mentioned so far is that it's meant for touch screens, but it can also work for bump pads as well, which opens it up to another group of folks in the restaurant industry. So when we brought this system into place, we had a few restaurants using bump pads and a few restaurants using touchscreens. And after a few days of talking it out with you guys, we were able to get this to function for both systems, which has been invaluable for us as we phase out the bump pads and go all touch. So we're able to use this to highlight an item right on the QSR system and hit a recipe button and see that recipe in real time. So we can see the picture to make sure that we are delivering the product as it's expected to be delivered, and we can see all the ingredients on those items and how much of each ingredient we need to put in there.
Awesome, that's great. And just for those of you guys that aren't familiar with digital kitchen systems, Lazy Dog, and I don't want to speak for you, but they've rolled out QSR automations into their kitchen environment. QSR automations is one of the best-in-class solutions for kitchen management systems, but you already have the technology sitting there, and we've layered the Recipe Viewer product on top of that. And so now they're interacting with each other seamlessly, and you can bounce back and forth between the two systems. And so the cook is looking at what he's supposed to be preparing, but if he doesn't know how to prepare that, and again, I don't want to speak for you, but if he doesn't know how to prepare that, we've created either on the bump pads or on the touchscreen the ability to look up that recipe. And so can you talk a little bit about that?
It's completely transparent to the end user. So they're clicking on this item using a system they've used for a while and hitting a recipe button, and it's bringing up that recipe in real time. To them, it just looks like an additional feature of the QSR system. So you guys have done a great job of seamlessly layering this into our existing environment.
Great. Well, and we talked a little bit at the prep. It is not required to have it on the QSR machine. Is that correct?
Correct.
So you can do it either with QSR or not with QSR.
Yep.
I think this is a good point to bring in. We've had some really good questions that pertain to this section right here. How do you prepare for and deal with internet outages and general internet challenges?
Yeah, that is a good question. We actually had one just yesterday. So I don't think you're going to be able to at this time get away from having a paper system. You're still going to want to have a rollover, or you're going to want to store digital copies of your recipes locally to accommodate for that. So we've stored digital copies locally of the pictures and the recipes through a cloud system that downloads to the restaurant. So we have those available at all times. It's inconvenient, but so is having an internet outage. So it's just a best case scenario given the circumstance.
Nice.
Real quick, just on the technology side of that, we have had some customers that have come to us with that same question related to internet. Anthony's chosen to have it offline, and you know what? We have a solution that's similar to that in an offline mode, whether it be printing the recipes to PDF and having the PDF sitting at the restaurant behind a secure environment, or there's a couple of different ways. We also had a client that ended up having 2 copies of the Recipe Viewer server. Very large client with lots of recipes, but they ended up having 2 Recipe Viewer servers, and then they load balanced them across the country, and then it was critical enough to them to put in a backup DSL. They had a high-speed bandwidth, and then they had a backup DSL put into every one of their restaurants. I know that that's probably going over the top, but for them, it was that critical a system that they said, you know what, we're going to have backup DSL for credit cards, we're going to have backup DSL for recipes. It comes up a lot slower, but that's the way that they chose to skin that cat.
Right on. And then can you see the recipe from the point-of-sale monitor straight through the check?
So you mean, if I think I'm understanding your question correctly, as that order is coming into the kitchen, are they interacting with the recipe in real time from the item they just ordered? And if that is the question, then yes. You can look up these recipes at self-serve, or you can actually interact with the items as they are ordered.
That's on the kitchen side. If I understand the question, potentially on a different side, on the POS side at the point-of-sale transaction, Anthony will talk, I guess. Why don't we go to the bar real quick, and we'll ask how you guys are using it in the bar.
Let's touch on something here, too.
So we can talk a little bit about the Expo. You guys are using it at Expo. Why don't you talk a little bit about that, and then when we get to the bar, maybe we'll address that question about the menu item.
I think the nice flexibility of the system is that we can use it in so many different ways. We started in the back of the house doing prep. Then we were on the line actually creating dishes. And now we're at the point at Expo where we actually have complete orders, where we have everybody's order in front of them, and we're ready to run that food out to the guest, and this is our last chance to make sure we did it right. So the great part about this is you can again highlight the items with on the QSR system in this scenario, and bring up a picture right there. So you have good quality control to make sure that you use the right plate, that you have the right garnishes, that the proper dressings are included with the item before it runs out. And I think that touch is invaluable.
Great. And then we'll go to the bar, and Jeremy, I know you can answer these two questions quickly. How do you ensure that only certified team members are using the tool, and then is KMS required? Is the kitchen management system required?
Yeah, I think we touched a little bit earlier on KMS required. It is not required. Our first deployments and on Anthony's site on the prep line, they don't have KMS back there, and so and most of our customers in the prep area don't have KMS because they're not preparing finished goods to go out to the guests. But so that is definitely not required. I guess I'll even pose the question to Anthony. How do you deal with certified team members, and how do you deal with that training aspect of using the solution to train your staff?
Sure. It actually, when we rolled the product out and going from paper to digital, it was one of the easiest rollouts we ever had. And it was, I mentioned, we kind of talked beforehand about this, but technology sometimes can be scary for folks, and they don't like change. This is one of those things where there was no pushback. They adopted the product and said, this is an easier way to do it. We don't have to go trying to run down a recipe that we've lost. We've got it all right in front of us. So really, there wasn't a lot of training involved. I don't know how to say it any better than that. It was really easy to use.
Great. Well, I'm glad that
it's intuitive.
I'm glad that it's worked so well for you guys. So we talked about the bar, and back to the menu item pieces. How are you guys using it in the bar? Because you guys were one of the first that we know of that put technology in the bar for prep recipes as well as finished good recipes. So how did that work for you guys, and what was your guys' deciding factor to move forward with putting it in the bar?
So as a company goal, we're trying to go away from paper as a whole. It's a cost savings, and it's one of the byproduct benefits of having a digital recipe system. So in addition to having digital monitors in the kitchen, we also have those in the bar. Well, to again leverage those that equipment, we've layered on the recipe viewers. So again, if you're making a margarita and it's a special that you don't know how to, you can highlight that drink, see the garnish, see the glass, see what the presentation is, and make sure that that's going out as expected before it hits the guest as well. So just another touch point where Recipe Viewer has been beneficial for us.
Great. Nice.
Thank you very much. We
do have more questions. We will answer all of those as we get along into the deck here. From a user standpoint, having known the product, deployed the product, you're from 30,000 feet. Top benefits.
Yep, no problem. I think one of the things that I just thought of that I hadn't had a chance to mention before is the flexibility of the presentation of the data. We've used this on an iPod Touch. We've used this on a tablet. We've used this on touch screens. We've used this on bump pads. So really, it's almost a device agnostic product, which I really think is a benefit that I hadn't had a chance to touch on before. The product, just the flexibility and the agility of it is just it's made it one of the easier products to integrate into our system.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we've enjoyed a good partnership with yourself and Lazy Dog, and technology partners are built to last, I think. So we'll open this up for questions. We do have a handful to run through really quick. Anthony answered about planning on using iPads. Yes, we do use it and can use it on different hardware devices, as he mentioned. Can you use, Jeremy, a cellular backup?
Yeah, so I alluded to that earlier. Yes, you can use cellular backup if it's that critical to you. You want to put a 4G card in to your router and have it end up being what is your backup to your main DSL cable, T1, whatever your different main internet is. So yes, we have had customers do cellular backup, and And I don't know if you guys used it, but I know some of our restaurant groups have used cellular for offsite when they're opening up a new restaurant. So until the lines get pulled in, they'll use Recipe Viewer as their training tool, but they'll use it in a cellular mode. So did you guys do that in San Diego?
Yeah, we did actually. We had a delay in getting our internet out there, so we pulled in a 4G hotspot and we're able to sync up recipes right through there. So it was very successful for us.
Great.
Nice. Is there an offline mode to use?
There is no offline mode per se built into the system, because by the nature of its design, it is designed to be an online tool. And if online is down, we have had customers though do an offline mode for very special cases where they're replicating databases and the database lives within the restaurant. And again, this was a customer that had satellite connection to them because they were in the middle of the country where they couldn't get a hardwired line, and the satellite would go down in the middle of a large thunderstorm, and so they were replicating databases during 4 times a year or something. So that was their offline mode. But they had a full SQL server and a full IIS server living within the restaurant, which is a lot of heavy lifting if you want to go that route. But if it's that critical to you, that's fine. So
awesome. Let's see this. I'm curious if the recipe to be prepared through Recipe Viewer can be linked to the inventory module on the POS system, with the end result letting the prep cook know if he has enough of the recipe items to prepare that recipe.
So as far as a feature set, and that's a long question, and so I'll try and rephrase it to make sure that it makes sense. But I think the question comes back to, how do we know how much to prep for the day? And per se, we don't have anything integrated into the system that says, here's what you need to prepare for the day. But how do you guys tackle that? I think you guys are using your inventory management system to do that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, we have a theoretical food cost, and we're working on an auto prep system that kind of gives us, based on historicals, how much to make. But I think, to kind of answer his question a little bit, you've done some third-party integrations in the past, and I do think that the possibilities are there. That would require some custom development.
Yeah, and we do have an API to be able to import your recipes. If you have full theoretical food cost module, we have an API that we publish that says here's how you import in, so that you only have to maintain one recipe system. At the same time, to Gary's point when he was talking to Anthony earlier, and Anthony has alluded to it both in today's conversation and in previous conversations, is we're always open as a partner to working with customers on making the product better. And so if there's features and enhancements that you guys are looking for, those are things that we're always open to adding to the products.
Nice. Perfect segue into the next question. Is the system integrated to a prep labeling function?
So today, that is probably one of the more asked questions on the prep side is can I have it print? And we have the ability to print now from the recipe client. We have not built in the actual label printing function. It is just a crystal report type of product, but we haven't gotten to the point that you can do what some people call day dots, where you're printing, hey, I've produced a batch of beans, and that batch of beans is now going to be expiring on Thursday. When I finish the prep recipe, I hit a button that says, print my day dot for Thursday. I think that's the question that's being asked. And if so, we are closer than we were 3 months ago when we released the ability to print from the recipe client, but we have not built in the day dot functionality yet, but it is on our roadmap to do.
Excellent. Thank you. Did you add any portable screens? I think that plays back to the iPad and tablet and that capability, so yes.
Yeah, the question, there's a question on there about Spanish and English. We do support multi-languages. Have you guys translated to Spanish yet?
Not yet. Okay. On our roadmap.
Okay. So we do have some customers that have supported multiple languages, and we do support not just Spanish and English, but you have the ability. We do not have translation tools that say translate from Spanish to English, because oftentimes the literal translation doesn't translate exactly to
the formal language.
The formal language, and so we have the ability to prepare the recipe in multiple languages, and it can default by the person that's logging in as well. If you're a Spanish-speaking cook, it can always go to Spanish, and if you're an English-speaking cook, it can always go to the English version if you want through your login. But we have the ability to log in and administer different languages of the recipe.
Okay. Does Lazy Dog use video? If so, what bandwidth are they using?
Yeah, we're in the process of rolling out that right now. I think really it's that's kind of it's a neat feature of Recipe Viewer, but really your constraints are more on your data side, whether you have a strong T1 or DSL or what have you. You're kind of only limited by the data download abilities of your data provider, I guess.
Okay.
But it's been very successful. We've done some demonstrations where we've showed how to make brand new items and uploaded them to the Recipe Viewer, and it's acted favorably with the staff.
Excellent, excellent. When you have a critical update, is it tied into the punch-in function for the team members so they are immediately alerted upon clock-in?
So I'll talk a little bit about how we've handled that. So because the recipe system is really designed for the cooks, most people haven't put the recipe viewers on the point of sale where people are clocking in and out. So that all being said, we do have kind of an announcement screen that you can modify on the entry page if you want to. That can do, you have a whole text formatter that you can put those announcements on there on initial login to the recipe viewer. But Anthony talked about it earlier, is the ability to have two different tags that go on the items, both updated and new. So anytime there's a new item, it shows like a little tag. We even have a new feature that now can show all new items on a single page if you want to. Yep. So you can click on it. Talk about how that might work for you.
I've actually seen where you've made a page of 86 items, and all those items are quote, new, but you just take items that you're out of, if there's a spinach scare, you don't want to make these 10 items, you put them all in that tab, and that would just be a daily function to check that before getting into their day.
Yeah, cool. What's the average bandwidth required per RV terminal?
And Anthony talked a little bit about it when he talked about are they doing video. I think it depends on what you're using it for. If you're using video, if you're using just pictures. It's
worked successfully in a DSL environment, a T1 environment, and a 4G hotspot, and that's with text and photos. I can't speak to videos on a 4G hotspot, but DSL and T1, it's worked just fine.
Nice, good examples, Anthony. How's Lazy Dog making PDFs for backup?
How are they we're using a third-party cloud system to store those backup files that I kind of alluded to earlier, and we are able to export PDFs out of the recipe editor. So we're using their system to make exports of those recipes, and then we're just storing them so that they get pushed down locally, so they have the ability to have access to those in the event of an outage. But I kind of feel like it's almost a non-issue, and I say that, and probably today we'll have internet outages, but it seems like more and more, the uptimes have become more stable and consistent, and it's really become a pretty limited non-issue item.
Nice, good. And Jeremy, can you describe the capture of prep data into a database?
So again, this kind of goes back to some of the questions that we were talking about for DayDots and doing all your prep stuff. We don't have a timing system that says they started prep and they closed prep. We've had some customers ask about it, but it's not something that we've been capturing workflow management like you might in some other systems. Today, that feature doesn't exist, and it would have to happen outside of the system. We've had a couple of customers allude to it, but never really have gone any farther on that.
Okay, good. Please describe the training certification process for new team members.
Anthony, do you guys use it for?
We have our certifications with ServSafe for proper food handling, but as far as each restaurant's interpretation of certification, I kind of think that's on a case-by-case basis, to be totally honest.
Okay, nice. We have one of our current users that submitted an answer that's beneficial for the whole group. Our client finds that the bandwidth 3 to 4 megs per location, 10 stations basic test with few low-res pictures.
So
anything to add to that?
Yeah, that was what they found. They were doing 3 to 4 meg DSL lines, and it was working well for them. And thank you.
Cool tool. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Tim, for helping us out on that.
Awesome. Are there certain inventory systems that you can maintain recipes in one area?
So again, we wrote an API for a customer that ended up wanting this, and that API. I think there's 2 inventory systems that are out there that automatically integrate with. The challenge that we found with the inventory systems is that most inventory systems don't have the preparatory instructions. They only have the ingredients, and so you have to be careful that whatever system you are using for inventory and food cost management has full inventory management and prep instructions built into it, rather than just the items that are going into it. But I think that the customer was BJ's that we wrote it for initially. BJ's was using C2IT for theirs, so I know that just off the top of my head, and I think we have an integration to Restaurant Magic, but I don't want to speak out of turn and say definitively, but we have an API that we've had 2 or 3 other customers that have just written straight to that API to be able to import information into the recipe system.
Okay, and
so we got just a couple more questions. There's one about cloud-based, and I think it is a cloud-based system by design, but I think your question might be, do I have to host it behind my own firewall, or can I do it at a cloud-hosted server? And we offer that solution as a pay-as-you-go monthly fee. You can also light up your own servers outside of your own environment and put it in your own cloud, through an Amazon or through hosting.com or through Rackspace if you want to. Do you guys keep it in-house, or are you guys using a hosting company?
No, we're using a hosting company who keeps that fully redundant to us. And one of the nice features that kind of touches on the security piece, just for those that are interested, we're also locking down the recipe viewer to certain public IP addresses. So if you were to somehow get in touch with the website for our recipe viewers and you went to your house and tried to bring it up, you wouldn't be able to get to it. I think that's another piece that we hadn't mentioned earlier, that's a nice lockdown feature for security.
Excellent. And Jay, can we integrate into Hot Schedules or People Matters?
We have not. We have not at this point. Again, because the majority of the product has been used in the front of the house line side, the integrations to People Matters and Hot Schedules, because we're not using it to punch in and out and we're not capturing any data for how long it takes to prep these things, that kind of has been happening on the point of sale side as well as on the QSR side. And I think that's how Anthony is using. Anthony is a Hot Schedules customer, and he uses Hot Schedules for their scheduling tools. And so we haven't gotten into the full management of how long it takes to do the prep and all of those kind of things. We're not doing any of that timing.
Okay. And then I think this is for Anthony. Do you use a secure browser?
No, we are just using Internet Explorer 9 or 10. I mean, the basic securities that are involved with that browser.
So I think that question actually came from an existing customer of ours that does use secure browser. We have, if security is a concern of yours, CBS has written a secure browser that eliminates any of the keystrokes, hot buttons. If people, again, get in and want to do screen captures and can plug in a keyboard into the point of sale terminal if you don't have it locked down and all of those kind of things. We've written a secure browser, and so if that tool is something that you're interested in, your sales representative can talk to you about that.
Excellent. And then we track productivity on recipes?
Again, we haven't gotten to that place to be able to track productivity of how long it's taking to do those recipes. And again, I think that's something that we'd be interested in doing and have had customers talk about it. So.
Okay. And then how many monitors have we replaced in the prep area?
I don't know if that means placed or replaced, but how many are you guys using in the prep area?
So we have 3 per location. Knock on wood, we haven't had to replace any today. It's luckily an environment where they're typically pretty clean to begin with, and so that kind of plays to the touch screens. But I really think it's just based on the age of your hardware and the environment that you're putting your equipment in. But knock on wood, we've been able to maintain just fine.
Nice, yeah, and that speaks to even outside of the prep area, the quality of the hardware that you put into the kitchen.
Yeah, and you know, at Lazy Dog they've got 3. We have some other customers that have gotten 3 and 4 into their prep area. Again, it's just like anything else. If you maintain it properly and you put it in the correct environment, they're going to last a decent amount of time. And I say a decent amount of time. We've had them last up to 6 or 7 years in one of our clients that's very, very busy. I don't know that I would make that a basic rule of thumb. I would say that you're probably going to look at 4 to 5 years on a recipe station. Hopefully your guys' accountants are writing them off well before that, because their useful life is probably 2 to 3 years. But we've found, I mean, you've found them now, you've got them installed for a little over 2 years now, and
yeah, 4 to 5 is right where I thought you should be. So okay. I agree.
Cool. We got a couple of responses. We track using the click count, FYI. And also, the only issues we've had is putting RV monitors in our pit area for our barbecue locations, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Sucking up smoke all day is tough on any piece of computer equipment. Thanks, Ashley. Boy, wow, we usually target Jeremy 30 minutes, and we blew way past this, but outstanding questions. What a privilege. You guys, thank you so much. We started doing these webinars some time back, and oftentimes you're kind of swinging in the dark at picking the right topics, subjects, having the right guests. Thank you to Anthony Mejia today for being a prime example of a technology user out in the field that can use real-life experiences built to benefit everybody. Our goal, JJ, with this was educational, and this is our first swing at a product that actually is ours. It's near and dear to our heart, and we're proud of it. But it's only successful because of users that are on this call and many users out in the field that aren't on this call. So thank you to everybody that participated. You see on the screen our contact information, the 800 number. My extension is 307. Jeremy's extension is 212. You can ping us via email by accessing us through the website also, gary.stotko@cbsnorthstar.com, jeremy.julian@cbsnorthstar.com. Thank you all again for your participation, and we'll look for you at the next webinar.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome.